Awesome. Welcome everybody to another session of the product-led webinar Wednesdays. I'm super excited to have here Kaus. She is the founder and CEO at Mason, and she is going to be talking all about no-code automation to power commerce growth. Just a heads up, if you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the comments, and we'll be sharing all of this stuff, the recording right after this. Oh, by the way, my name is Ramli John from Product-led. I'm super excited to be hosting this webinar Wednesday with Kaus. I'm going to pass it off to you now to jump right in to share about no-code automation to power commerce growth.
Thank you, Ramli. And before anything else, thank you so much for having me here today. It's an interesting day. It's the first day of the last month of the year, and it's also a great thing to. Both me and my co-founder, we're very excited to be speaking to you. We love you and your team's work at Product-led. We've been following you for a while, and it's also great to be on the other side of webinar Wednesdays for a change. And so. Let me just move on. Right. So who am I? I'm Kausambi Manjita. And before anything else, I'm a very hands-on aunt to 12-year-old twins. And they're teenagers now. And for a large part of my close to 14 odd years in e-commerce now, I've been a product maker. Very recently, I also realized that my passion for bringing technology and making it accessible to people is also known as being a no-code evangelist. So that's something that I also go by today. So here I am. And in the last year and a half, I've also been one of the founders and the CEO at Mason, right? And yes, I dabble in poetry and I love poems, but more about that later. Am I even a founder if I don't start with a mandatory quote from a contemporary of our times? And, one of the greats, Elon Musk, I love this quote. It's out there on the internet, very commonly known. It's possible for ordinary folks like me to choose to be extraordinary. And I think what I like about this, and it stands out to me, is that it kind of ties back to the thread that we are going to dive in today around no code and automation, because a large part of enabling of no code is about enabling subject matter experts to build and launch solutions that are near to their problems, right? And that kind of no code is something that's giving them the power to be extraordinary in a way. So let's start. Let's start with a question, right? It's okay, I won't get a show of hands, but I'd like for you to take 5 seconds and think about what could be the average rate in your mind, the average rate at which an online store today converts traffic of visitors on their site to orders, right? Take a second, and here it is. I'm sure a lot of you would be like, it's as low as 3.5%, and it is as low as 3.5%. In fact, it can even be lower, right? For new stores, a lot of times it's at a 1 or a 2%. And I'm sure the next natural question that comes to your mind is that I shop a lot at Amazon, right? And all those deliveries that I keep getting, is it just 3.5% of like traffic to orders, right? Well, it's not, because when you look at an Amazon or a Walmart for that matter, it's a whooping chasm. It's such a big difference, right? And Amazon converts at a 13 to 14% with all the great technology and systems that they use. A Walmart, again, 7 to 8%. Even when you look at like the great D2C brands that we all love, Allbirds, Glossier, Warby Parker, they are converting at more than double your average store today, right? And that chasm between 3, and to 13%, in that entire chasm is the spectrum of tools, products, solutions, technologies that actually enable e-commerce teams, that help e-commerce stores to grow every single day, right? And you see a lot of different names here. I'm sure some are familiar. You have your Shopify, Shogun, some, of course, Mason's one of them. You also have a lot of unfamiliar names for, I'm sure, for folks who are not into e-commerce or into retail technology, names like Looks or a Loop Returns. But all of these different products actually are used by different operators to manage their storefront and try to, cross that chasm of 3 to 13%, right? And of course, we all love our brands. They connect to us. We identify a lot of our personality with our favorite brands. We love these stores, right? But running them is so hard today. It's a lot of different operators doing a lot of different things, using a lot of different toolkits and different silos of functions to actually come together to run and operate an e-commerce store, right? But why is it hard? And I want to dive in a little bit now deeper into each of these different systems and toolkits and people that have to come together to help you operate an e-commerce storefront today, right? So let's start with what do like big marketplaces like an Amazon or a Walmart, or you have a system or a team like a Allbirds or a Glossier or a Warby Parker. What are these different systems that they put together today, right? So the first and the most important system is actually people, and it's your content and content creation teams, right? And an interesting thing over here, when I was working in a Walmart subsidiary, it's the largest fashion marketplace in India. And as we move from being, managed to actually a marketplace model, we started setting up a content and content creation teams, right? This is designers, copywriters, marketeers, all of them having to come together to actually make sure that the content, all the information from my catalog to my offers, to my homepage, to collections page, all of them actually come together and they look good. The content is meaningful. It's in sync with what is actually happening in my business, right? And over there, we started out with a 30-40 member team. And it actually, by the time I had left, it was an 80-member strong content team with in-house members, vendors who do photography or photo shoots of all their products, etc. So imagine this, right? A company who's running at like 100 million GMV has a 70 to 80 member content creation team in-house and operators and vendors of their team who actually come together to manage the content that you see on the marketplace every day, right? The second pillar of what marketplaces invest in to manage and grow their storefront is your CMSs and CDNs, right? A lot of larger teams end up building their own content management systems and their own delivery systems. You need to ensure commerce content is very unique because it's not just about blogs and blurbs, but it's also information such as your pricing, your coupons, your product information, all of that, product descriptions, your reviews. All of these different things have to come together to actually define what is a product, right? So a large part of marketplaces, great big brands, they invest in most likely building their own CMSs, or they use a lot of headless CMSs, large platforms that are out there today to manage their entire product information content, and all the peripheral information that comes along with it, right? And of course, your content delivery is another aspect to your content management. When you think of a storefront, it's first different parts of your storefront funnel itself, from your homepage to your product list pages, to your product details pages. Each part of a storefront funnel has very different unique content aspects that go, content models that go into them. A typical homepage, it would be a lot about the offers, the kind of brands that you want to showcase, the categories that you have, etc. Your list pages usually help you compare products and take a decision on choosing one product over the other. So the kind of content model and the information that you put on a list page is also very different. So the delivery of how you deliver that kind of content, also the decisions are different, right? Then your product details pages, here a lot of social proof also have to come into the picture, because now I'm not just trying to understand what the product is, I'm also diving into what are the different features of the product, who bought this product, how many items of this product are left, what are the testimonials or reviews that are there around this product, etc. Right? So all of these different parts of the funnel have to be delivered with the right content at the right for the right consumer at the right time, right? But that's not it. There's also notifications, your in-app, browser notifications, in-app notifications. You have your direct channels such as emails, your WhatsApp messages, etc., that go to your loyal customers, to your repeat customers, and of course, a lot of this information also goes to your distributed storefronts, which is essentially if you have a presence you have your own brand in a store, but you might also be on a marketplace. A lot of times as a brand, you also have presence on a Target or a Walmart or a Amazon. So all of that delivery also has to be taken care of. So the second, important pillar of what a marketplace invests in is actually content management and content delivery systems, right? The third pillar is, of course, personalization and search. And interesting, experiments that have run over here. And I'm going to give an example of how personalization and search, what does it look like in action, right? Personalization, of course, all of us know about it. What Ramlee sees versus what I see when I get into a store, it has to be different. Based on my history of purchases, the kind of, affinity of products that I have an affinity towards, the kind of price range that I usually shop for, all of these have to come together. And when I come repeatedly to a store, if this information is missing and I'm not shown the more and more relevant information, it sort of stops making sense for me, right? Personalization also works a lot when when I'm buying bundles. For example, if I'm a young mother and I've recently started buying diapers, it totally makes sense for the store to actually start also promoting rash creams to me, because of course when babies wear diapers they also get rashes, and rash cream sort of starts making sense, right? So all of these decisions have sort of make my shopping experience so much more delightful. And this is something that as a marketplace or a brand, if you have your own store, you definitely got to invest in to make that shopping experience so much more delightful and seamless for me. And search is not just about a graphic t-shirt and getting a bunch of graphic t-shirts in my list pages, but imagine this, right? Let's say I'm in a store and I'm searching for red dresses, and imagine now when I search for red dresses and it's around Jan or Feb over here, and the search results, the store actually shows Valentine's Day collections to me. It's just red dresses. Most likely she's looking for a date night dress, and it's Jan or Feb. Maybe it's around Valentine's Day. So search is not just about listing out what keywords I have searched for and showing me the best match, but it's actually also understanding the intent behind that search, right? Marrying it to consumer behavior, marrying it to environmental, dynamics, and actually tying it together to deliver an experience that is again delightful for me as a shopper, right? So there's so much that can be explored in personalization and search. It's not just about showing me, 5 products that I enjoy, nor is it only about showing me, the keywords that I just searched for. but making sure that all of that ties back to my history of purchase, my affinity, and more importantly, to my intent, right? So this is the third pillar. I'm just on the third. There are four more. Of course, I have, searched for products. I like it. People are converting. But another important pillar is also A/B testing and experimentation, because as a marketplace, my goal is to constantly tune the shopping funnel to make sure that my customers are not just dropping off and getting disappointed when they come to my store to buy something, but am I able to help them consistently to find the right products whenever they're in my store? And so can I help them, convert better, make decisions faster, right? And of course, it leads to a better impact on my business. And so A/B testing and experimentation frameworks, very important, a huge pillar of a marketplace being successful and something that you have to invest in to make your store successful, right? After all of that, if I test and I experiment and I don't have analytics, it's not going to really help me make the decisions. So analytics and metrics, very important pillar again. Really great products out there that teams already use. A lot of large marketplaces actually set up their own analytics and metrics engines to actually capture all that behavior of customers on across the funnel, right? When I'm promoting certain categories and products to certain kinds of users, on what different times of the year, how are consumers behaving, how are they purchasing, how are they interacting, what are the kinds of products that people are searching for but they're not able to find in my store, what are the kinds of products that people are searching for and finding, and but I don't have enough inventory for, and they're running out really fast. All of these, decisions have to be taken, but for those decisions, I need the data, and analytics and metrics is, of course, another very important part of my marketplace engine, right? But data is just data if it doesn't really give us any insights. So customer insights platform, again, CDPs, you might have, all of us have heard a bunch about it. Very, very important in e-commerce to actually have great insights platforms that you use, because what you have to do is now tie that data back to behavior, right? And the objective again being, how do I tighten the funnel? How do I understand the intent behind all the things and actions, events that are being passed on to my analytics database? And how do I make sense of all that to actually derive insights out? For example, in the red dresses example, if a lot of people are actually buying red dresses and they're buying red shoes along with it, and maybe a certain kind of trinket, definitely makes sense to probably tie them together as a look that is, selling really hotcakes near Valentine's. So information like that, it's not meaningful unless you tie it back to the intent, you tie it back to the dynamics of the environment, and along with the data that people are searching for red dresses, right? And the final pillar is an army of data folks, right? So all of these great insights you've captured, you've done a lot of experiments, you have set up, you have content set up, you have a great content management and delivery engine, you have personalized and made your search really delightful and meaningful, intent-based search. You've captured all that information, you have derived insights out of it. Now, what you need to do is not just take that insight and project it back into your funnel, but also take decisions on how does it impact my forecasting for my next year, right? What are the kind of products and categories that I need to add to my marketplace versus not? What are all the bundles? I spoke about the example in toys and baby care. It's usually that's a category that's always selling as a set of bundles and not just individual products, because for new parents it's really hard to understand what do I buy with a set of diapers and rash creams, right? So it's bundling is very important for certain categories, and also helps you upsell. What are the prices? prices? How do I get the right kind of discounts for the right kind of consumers with coupons, etc.? So a lot of these information that we captured now have to be massaged into the right decisions and actions that actually impact my business over the next phase of growth, right? So yeah, I spoke a lot, and all this intelligence, all of these actions that I take, so many different teams coming together, your product, design, technology, all of these, the data team, all of them coming together. And in my mind, it feels like a fleet of engineers and technologists and content creators and designers and product managers and category managers working in tandem, orchestrating to make a marketplace and a brand and a store online successful, right? And just to give a quick insight over here, when I was back at the Walmart subsidiary, Myntra, at about 100 million of GMV, 2% of GMV was actually invested in technology and tech systems, and 25% of that money that we invested back into technology and tech systems, 25% of that was actually in technology operations, which is your engineers, designers, data scientists, your product managers who are day-to-day running your storefront. So it's not just a lot of people orchestrating your storefront, it's a lot of heavy investment going back into your storefront to actually make it successful, right? Now, imagine all the things that I mentioned, like all the 7 pillars, and you are a 5-member D2C brand, right? It's overwhelming, to be very honest, because it's meaningful when you are a large marketplace. You have a lot of access to technology, you have a lot of heavy investment that you can do in hiring large teams. Your breadth of products is, of course, very wide. So you can definitely, have much more leverage to do a lot more experimentation. You have much more higher GMVs that you are operating at. But as a brand who's very narrow into a category and a segment, and who's now breaking out from being a social seller to actually finding product market fit and scaling, all these personalization and search and content operations team, and setting up your analytics and data science team, and all of them orchestrating together every day, it's a lot of work, and it is extremely tiring. It's a lot of burnout that happens in the e-commerce world today, right? And growth is not a silver bullet. It's iterative and it's cumulative. And to power iterative growth, this fragmented silos of system, it just doesn't work. You need, as a team, you need something better. You need something that's much more tied together, and which gives the power of action to decision makers, right? Before we dive in, like, what could that system be? Let's talk about OODA. OODA is Observe, Orient, Decide, Act. I'm sure a lot of us nerds know about it. I find it, I recently dived a little bit deeper into it, and I found it very fascinating. OODA loop is a concept developed by John Boyd. He's a military genius. He spoke about how, the best growth, the best decision, the best outcomes actually happen when you iterate really fast, right? Well, I moved back a lot back, which is cool. And we are back here. All right. So John Boyd is a military strategist, as I mentioned, and he, had this framework called OODA, which is a loop on how you can leverage observation orientation to take a right decision, and then take an action based on it, and then go back to observing and orienting, right? So it's a loop, it's not a one-way process. And for example, if you're, if you're in a dogfight in a jet plane, in your high, fast, dynamic environment. You have to make decisions really, really fast. And at that moment, it's not just about the skills that you have. You definitely need your skills, but it's you win that dogfight because you outmaneuver. Right, and that outmaneuvering is a lot about iterating constantly, your how fast you can iterate, right? So this whole OODA loop actually makes a lot of sense even in the context of e-commerce and storefronts, because how much you can grow, how much you can tighten the funnel in your store, in your online store today, that really depends on how fast you can iterate and how fast you can react to changes that are happening in your business. And I think more than any other time, the pandemic has shown us that, your environment changes constantly with the new strain that's blowing up all over. You never know when your environment changes. You never know when things change around you, but that doesn't mean that you just sit back. It means that you have to decide and you have to iterate and act fast, right? And as I said, I think it's very, very relevant for business growth and not just for dogfights. And let's take an example of how these OODA military strategies can be applied to storefront growth strategy too, right? And I'm taking a narrow example of a certain kind of e-commerce business. Let's talk about a team who's selling perishables. And, as a perishables brand, I'm selling microgreens and salads and, fresh hydroponic products online. And the interesting thing about this kind of business is that, within 24 hours, all my leafy greens have to be sold out. Otherwise, they die out, and I lose revenue. I lose my cost of goods, right? And to do that today, all these typical team would have to do is you would have one person actually, or a set of people who are constantly monitoring several times a day the inventory in my subcategory of microgreens, for example, or leafy greens, and they'd have certain threshold planned out for the day. Hey, by half a day I should have sold 50% of my inventory, right? And then I know that usually in evenings people hurry and order salads, and so I can make up for the rest of the sale in the second half of the day. But let's say that as you are constantly monitoring, at a certain time in the day you realize that I'm at half a day and I haven't sold even 75% of my microgreens yet. So what happens then? At that moment, what will happen is that you have to pull in, that information back to your category, the microgreens categories team. The category team will actually take decision on based on the amount of inventory that's left, and who's the cohort of customer who has the biggest propensity to buy microgreens, to actually derive an offer, to plan out an offer and say that, hey, we are going to run XYZ offer on microgreens category, and run it on the storefront as well as emailers, and probably put it out on direct notifications too, because we want our people to hurry and buy it, right? And then what will happen is that tech and tech ops have to come into the picture, because what they will have to do is then, hey, ensure that the offers are live on the site across all different properties of your store: home, product listing, product details page, etc. Marketing ops have to come into picture to make sure that all that information is also relayed back to the customers at the right channel. Let's say social, or maybe direct. In case of this perishables business, most likely it's going to be a direct channel, right? And now imagine this is just for one subcategory of products for a certain business, and several times in one day. And this is the kind of operations you have to run 365 days a year, right? Not just for one category, but for all your subcategories, right? So clearance sales, flash sales, when products go out or back in stock, promotions that you have to run around, micro events that are happening out there, all of these different things have to be done every single day of the year to constantly operate your store, to make sure that you're making your business successful, right? And for each each of this whole supply chain that I spoke about, where you're analyzing the inventory, you're taking, looking at the data of how customers are engaging with your microgreens category, then you are taking a decision, to do a discount or an offer across certain channels for a certain period of time, and then the actions come into the picture, right? There are great tools for different parts of the funnel, but the interesting thing is that they are in silos. So let's look at what these are. For the observe and orient part of your business, of the funnel, which is, I went and I checked that my microgreens category is running low on stock, or rather is not selling out, sorry, and I have to make sure that they get sold out. And this is where the customer insights, listening to customers, analytics, measurement, all of those systems come into play, and great systems already exist out there to actually help teams take decisions of this sort. Once all that information is collated, it's usually spreadsheets, Excel sheets. That's where all this information will get collated. You'll be, looking through that data, taking some strategic bets that, hey, yes, we just really want to sell it out. So we are going to offer a 50% discount on all hydroponics today because we are still at 75% of inventory, right? So you take strategic and tactical bets. You have some hypothesis around which is the kind of channel that it might work out the best in. So you'll say, let's go heavy on notifications and direct SMSs this time versus maybe emails, right? So a lot of these decisions happening on spreadsheets today. And of course, there are execution playbooks. Remember the whole breadth of products that help the entire spectrum of products that actually enable the whole e-commerce ecosystem. A lot of those products, different products, have to come together to actually help you execute the playbook, which is, in this case, run a discount on some set of channels, make sure there are creatives that are made for that, make sure there are products that are highlighted back into the store, etc. A bunch of different products have to come together, right? And all of these, this whole workflow is so operationally heavy. It's so painful today. And the reason it's so painful is because when you look at it, your decision-making tools, which are your spreadsheets and your analytics, they are disconnected from your action tools, which are your storefront and your store products, right? So you take your decisions, you analyze in one place, and then a whole system and an engine has to get started to actually take that action, right? And that's where no-code and automation actually fits in. It's because no-code brings the power of action to the decision makers, right? In the example that I spoke about, a system like Mason, for example, what it would do is it will give a no-code playbook to the category teams themselves, so that they can set rules which say that when inventory is at 75% in the 12th hour of a day, make sure that there is a discount of X% that is put on the products, and these products are then delivered as notifications or messages across these channels, right? A lot of automation definitely helps in that workflow too, because simple things like how, if my discount is changed, if my price is changed in my Shopify backend, is it getting replicated back on my Instagram or my WhatsApp messages, right? These things need automation to actually come together to tie that workflow together. So no code enables these complex decisions to come together to be done by the subject matter expert who needs to take the decision, and automation helps execute that decision by the subject matter expert, right? So the reason why no code and automation are so important for e-commerce is because e-commerce is really dynamic, and more than anything else over these last couple of years, we've seen that as the world changes, as things flip instantly at the drop of a hat, people who decide that this is what we have to do to react to that situation, they need to also enable the action really, really quickly, right? But people who decide mostly do not have the tools to act, and they have to do a lot of operational management and project management and collaboration and pulling people together to actually execute that decision. Okay? And with no code and automation, you can actually bring that power of action to the decision makers. And of course, it has a lot of benefit because your speed to market, it's incredible. When you see that you have excess inventory, you can actually put a discount instantly on it and make sure that you recover the cost of those goods bought. For any small brand, or any growing brand, it's such a fearful thing to actually see inventory lying there and it's not getting sold out. They're losing business and they're losing the money that they have invested into the business, right? So speed to market is so crucial and so important. Error and hands-free operations. It definitely reduces the chance of manual errors that enter into the system. For example, in the workflow that we just spoke about, imagine a coupon that is sent to customers. I have an anecdote here. We were working, when I was working in an Alibaba subsidiary, there was a situation where the coupon was, code 30, code 30. And by mistake, someone entered the coupon as code 30 in all the social and ads. Right. And there were very angry customers tweeting and, ranting on Instagram and Facebook who were like, code 30 just doesn't work. Why is it not working? And actually it was code 30 and it was just a wrong entry to the marketing team and to the creative and content team. And it was hours and hours lost of revenue. Right. So errors really happen when a lot of different handoffs are there and a lot of breaks are there in the whole process. But with no code and automation, you can actually tie that process together and you can avoid broken windows in your workflows, right? And of course, it really helps in extremely high fidelity execution, right? To make your business really successful. So in summary, and there's a lot to summarize, I can go on and on, but I'll try to keep it really succinct, is any user that you lose in a business today is gone. McKinsey recently, over the last, I think 2020 and 21, they did they ran a survey and they found out that today, more than any other time in the history of e-commerce, 36 to 40% of us shoppers and consumers, if we experience a broken window in our shopping funnel, if we are looking at a t-shirt and we are about to buy it, but the color that we like is not there, or the size that we want is out of stock, 36% of us just jump out and we go to another marketplace or another brand, and we don't come back to the same brand again, right? So if you lose a user, it's gone. There are a lot of more options. They go off and they buy somewhere else, right? And that's where no code and automation and DIY systems really help. It's because it brings the power of action to the decision makers. So if I know as a category manager or a business manager that my inventory is running low, or the t-shirt that I've put out on an Instagram ad, the sizes, certain sizes are not available or certain colors are missing. If I have a system in which that information is relayed back to that Instagram story or Instagram ad, and so shoppers who see that ad do not see the wrong colors or the wrong sizes, or are shown the information that certain sizes are not available, then you are avoiding the chance of a broken window and a broken funnel. Okay. Yeah, and that's about it. Open for questions now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for going through that. If people have any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat here, as well as you should be able to unmute yourself as well if you want, and just ask Kos any questions here. I mean, I can start off by asking if people had more questions after this. People say, hey, I should have asked this question on that session. Is there an easy way to find you online? Like, it's on LinkedIn, Twitter, anywhere else?
Yes, I'm Kaus, Kaus, and very unique name. So very easy to find me on LinkedIn. I'm Kausambi Manjita on LinkedIn, and on Twitter it's at KMANJITA.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And the floor is open for any questions. If people had any questions about this session or all the stuff that Kaus just gone through, feel free to drop it in the chat here. I mean, one question I had was, I mean, this is something that I ask everyone around. Like, if you had one piece of advice, I know you've gone through the session. If you had to like just give one or two pieces of advice to people who are going to tune on this after, what would be like the final piece of advice that you want to give to folks?
I think for me again, it's more about how do you. I'm not a developer. I don't code, but I have worked in product and technology for decade and a half. And one of the interesting things about no code and low code is that it just makes reacting to changes and evolving products easier. It's so much easier to, even within an enterprise, if you have no code applications that that are deployed, it's so much easier to replug and recreate better solutions to react to changes that are happening, which is so hard in a situation where you have to involve your typical sprint cycles and product teams and all of that having to come together to actually deploy a change, right? So my advice, or rather my thought over here as a closing thought, is always that when subject matter experts can get involved in actually building and acting on decisions, it just means that the world has a lot more solutions that are way closer to the problem than you could have before.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, if people had any other questions, feel free to share it, but you know where to find Kaus now on LinkedIn. So definitely people can share it there. I think that's all. I don't see any other questions. So I just want to thank everybody. Thank you, Kaus, for going through this presentation. I really do appreciate you going through this. We'll be sharing out the recording of this on the Slack channel that we have, as well as on the newsletter. So thank you so much, everyone. And particularly thank you, Kaus, for this webinar. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. And thank you, everyone, for being here. Take care.
Awesome. Have a great one, everyone.